Hello. Today we're covering brand health tracking, a method that takes the snapshot you get from a comprehensive brand study and turns it into something far more valuable, a trend you can actually watch move over time. By the end of this, you'll know which metrics to track, how to set up the survey, and how to read the dashboard that comes out the other side. Let's start with the problem. Here's a risk that catches brands completely off guard: slow decline. A brand doesn't usually collapse overnight. It drifts. Awareness holds steady, but consideration quietly slips. A competitor's campaign gradually pulls preference points away from you. By the time you run your next big study and notice the numbers have moved, you've lost a year or more of ground. Without regular tracking, you won't see it coming until it's already a crisis. Brand health tracking is your early warning system. The central idea here is a shift in how you think about data. One number, a single snapshot of awareness or preference, means very little on its own. You don't know if it's high, low, rising, or falling. But a trend line, that means everything. When you can see that consideration has climbed 4 points over 3 quarters, or that preference has been flat for a year despite rising awareness, suddenly you know exactly what's happening and where to focus. Brand health is about direction, not destination. Brand health tracking is a survey run on a regular cadence, monthly or quarterly, that measures a focused set of key brand metrics over time. The goal isn't to go deep on any one wave. The goal is to keep asking the same questions consistently so that each new wave adds another data point to a trend line that gets more meaningful the longer you run it. The value isn't in any single number, it's in watching the line move. It helps to be clear about how a tracker differs from a comprehensive study. A snapshot study, like a full attitude and usage study, is deep, broad, and run occasionally. It answers where do we stand right now in detail. A tracker is the opposite, lighter, narrower, and run frequently. It answers, are we moving in the right direction? Trackers trade depth for consistency and frequency. Each repeated round is called a wave, and the comparison between waves is where all the value lives. Let's track a brand that we used previously, Oatwave, the oat milk brand. Oatwave has run a deep attitude and usage study and knows their baseline. Now they want to know if things are moving. They've just launched a new marketing campaign and made some product changes. Are those investments actually working? Is awareness growing? Is consideration following? A quarterly tracker will tell them, quarter by quarter, clearly and consistently. Before you write a single question, decide what to track and keep the list short. For most brands, 5 metrics cover everything that matters. Awareness. Do people know you exist? Consideration. Would they consider buying you? Preference. Are you their first choice? Perception. How do they rate you on the 2 or 3 attributes that matter most? And loyalty or advocacy. Do they plan to buy again, and would they recommend you? That's it. Resist the urge to track everything. Consistency matters far more than breadth when you're building a tracker. This is the golden rule of brand health tracking, and it's more important than almost any other methodological decision. Never change the wording. Same question, same scale, same order, every single wave, without exception. Here's why it matters so much. If you change even one word between waves, say purchase to buy, or a 5-point scale to a 7-point scale, you've broken the comparability. You can no longer tell if a movement in the data is a real change in the brand or just an artifact of the question being slightly different. Keep everything identical every time. Consideration is one of the most valuable metrics in a brand tracker, and it's worth understanding why. Awareness tells you how many people know you exist. Useful, but slow to move. Purchase tells you how many actually bought. Real, but a lagging indicator. Consideration sits in between. Would you consider buying this brand next time you shop the category? It responds faster than purchase behavior and more meaningfully than awareness. When your marketing campaign starts working, consideration is usually the first metric to move, which is why it's such a good early warning signal in both directions. Consideration is an open door. People who'd consider Oatwave might also be considering 5 other brands. Preference closes that door. Which brand is your first choice in the category? It forces a single pick, which makes it much sharper, more competitive signal. A brand can have high consideration and low preference. Lots of people would consider it, but fewer actually choose it first. Tracking preference over time shows you whether you're actually winning the category, not just staying visible in it. That's a more meaningful measure of brand strength than awareness or consideration alone. A full attitude and usage study might ask people to rate your brand on 15 or 20 attributes. A tracker doesn't do that. It picks the 3 or 5 that matter most and tracks just those, every wave. For Oatwave, that might be tastes great, healthy choice, and good value. The logic is simple. 3 attributes tracked consistently for 8 quarters gives you far more useful trend data than 15 attributes tracked once. Narrow your perception tracking to the attributes most tightly linked to purchase, and you'll always know whether the things that matter most to your customers are moving in the right direction. The sampling approach for a tracker is slightly different from a one-time study. You survey a representative sample of the category every single wave, and the screening criteria need to stay identical each time, so you're measuring the same population wave over wave. If you let the screening drift, you can't tell whether a change in your metrics reflects a real change in the brand or just a different group of people being surveyed. Sample size for trackers are typically smaller than a full ANU. 200 to 300 per wave is common, because the value comes from stacking waves over time, not from any single wave being huge. Here's the full tracker survey in order, and notice how short it is. Screen for category buyers. Ask awareness, ask consideration, ask preference. Rate the 3 to 5 key perceptions. Ask the loyalty or advocacy question, and capture demographics. The whole thing should take under 5 minutes to complete. That brevity is by design. People will answer this survey repeatedly, wave after wave, and the shorter it is, the more consistent the response rates will be across waves. Now the visual that makes this all real, the brand health dashboard. For Oatwave, we're tracking 3 key metrics across 4 quarters. Awareness is holding steady, roughly 65% across all 4 quarters. Not growing, but not declining. Consideration is climbing. It was at 30% in Q1, and it's at 41% by Q4, a meaningful upward trend. And preference is flat, hovering around 12% all 4 quarters. 3 lines, 3 very different stories, all visible at a glance. That's the power of the dashboard. Now let's read what the dashboard is actually telling us. The consideration line is rising. That's almost certainly the new marketing campaign working. More people are open to Oatwave than they were 6 months ago, but the preference line is completely flat. People are increasingly willing to consider Oatwave, but something is stopping them from actually choosing it as their first pick. The gap, rising consideration, flat preference, is a very specific diagnostic. It's not an awareness problem. It's not a marketing problem. It's a product or a pricing question. Something about the actual experience of choosing O-Wave over a competitor isn't landing. That's where the next deep dive study needs to go. Let's be honest about both sides. Brand health tracking straight. It reveals slow trends that are completely invisible in any single snapshot. It gives you an early warning sign so you can catch a problem while it's still small. And because it's lightweight, you can run it often enough to actually be useful. The limitations? A tracker is shallow by design. It tells you what moved, but rarely why. A single wave in isolation is nearly meaningless. The value only emerges over multiple waves. And maintaining discipline, keeping every question identical wave after wave, resisting the temptation to add just one more thing, is genuinely harder in practice than it sounds. Think of brand tracking as a radar, not a diagnosis. It tells you when something needs a closer look. 5 things to take with you. Track a small, consistent set of metrics: awareness, consideration, preference, perception, and loyalty. Never changing the wordings between waves. Consistency is everything in a tracker. Pay close attention to consideration and preference, since they tend to move closer and more meaningfully than awareness. Build a dashboard so the trend lines are always visible in one place. And when a metric moves up or down, use it as a trigger to run deeper research to understand why. The tracker tells you when something has changed. Deeper research tells you what to do about it. Used together, they give you brand intelligence and never goes stale. Thank you for watching.